Hello everyone, and welcome to the December 2017 update of the Power BI desktop. We have tons of features this release. The very first one is a reporting feature that allows you to now start using Q&A for report creation. So if you use our web service, you already know Q&A as part of the dashboard experience, where you can ask questions about any of the data that's part of the dashboard you're looking at in a very natural language and get answers to those in charts, which you can pin back to the dashboard if you have edit permissions. Well, this month we are releasing the ability to also use Q&A in your reporting canvas to be able to ask questions and use those as charts in your report, which makes the whole reporting process a whole lot easier, because now all you have to do is ask questions. You don't have to worry about how to create charts, what fields go well, where in the field well, or anything like that. So let me show you that in action. So to start asking questions about your data, you have two different options to use. The first is that you can click this Ask a Question button, and as soon as you click that, we'll automatically pop a empty visual in the question box that lets you start typing the question you want to answer. So I can type, for example, categories by sales amount and class. And now I have a chart, which we picked the one that we think is the best to answer the question that you asked. And all you have to do is hit enter, and now that's a normal chart in your report. You can drag it around, you can resize it, you can go into the formatting pane and change filters, move things around, adjust how you want it to look. Anything that you want, you can now do, because it's just a normal chart in your report. The other way to trigger the Q&A question box is to just double click on your report page. And once you've double clicked, we will again do the same thing. We'll spawn a visual and the question box so you can start asking questions. The nice thing about Q&A, we get all the power of Q&A, so some of the nice things you can do is, for example, filter through this as well. So, for example, I can say I want to see my top categories where by units, where the class is, let's go with economy. And now this where clause, where class is economy, is actually applied as a filter on the visual, where I can, and since it's an actual normal filter card, I can go in there and adjust it later however I want. And so you get all the nice power of Q&A, all the filtering capabilities, all the nice automatic chart creation, and even all of the nice little UI elements, like being able to suggest things for you, being able to easily, in the question itself, switch between the different filter context, changing fields if you want. All of the nice features that just come with Q&A are now automatically integrated into your Power BI report for you to start using. And we're really excited about this feature because it's going to really enable you to create reports so much faster, because you no longer have to know how to create visuals. You don't have to understand how the field world works and, oh, do I want to put this in values or legend or axis, or where do I want this field to go? All you have to do is know what you want as your chart and just type out basically the title of the chart. What do you want to see? And you'll automatically have a visual that you can start using. So hopefully you can start using this feature to help ease your report creation process. Next on our list are two updates to our bookmarking preview. The first one being that we can now bookmark cross-highlighting in addition to all the other great features that we allow you to bookmark, like filters, sorting, and slicers. And we also are expanding bookmarking to give you more flexibility in what is included in a bookmark. So I'll show you both of those. So I'm going to go over to the first page of my report and open up the bookmarks pane. Now, If you remember back from whenever we announced our bookmarking preview a couple of months ago, bookmarking is all about saving the current state of your report so you can easily access it later for either storytelling purposes or just remembering the steps of your analysis or whatever you want to use it for. And the goal was to always save the entire state of your report. So filter states, slicer states, all the different visual related stuff like the visibility, everything that was included as part of your report and part of your analysis. But we did have one small gap that you may have noticed, which is that we didn't include cross-highlighting as part of the bookmark. So if your report was cross-highlighted when you did the bookmark and you went back to it later, everything other than the cross-highlighting would be applied. This month, with this update, we are filling in that gap. So now literally everything that's part of your report is getting saved as part of the bookmark. So exactly how you saw it when you click the bookmark button, that's how you'll go back to it whenever you re-click it. So you can see I have my report here, and I actually have a cross-highlighting saved as part of this bookmark. And when I go back to it, you can see that I had cross-highlighted by cluster 3, and you can see all of the information there. And let's say that I wanted to clear that and cross-highlight by computers now and make a new bookmark. If I go back to an old bookmark and then jump to the one I just created, you can see that the cross-highlighting was in fact saved as part of the bookmark. So this should completely fill the gaps that we had related to what's being saved in the bookmarks, and you should be able to easily now replicate anything, all of the state of your report. The rest of the bookmarking features we're doing this month are all around increasing the flexibility you have for bookmarking. When we released the feature 2 months ago, we got a lot of great feedback on it, and one of the things we heard loud and clear was that you needed more flexibility on what is being contained inside that bookmark. By default, we save the entire state of your report page, but you wanted to be able to control that a little bit more. For example, in my demo that I gave for bookmarking when the feature first released, I showed how you could choose to tie a bookmark to an image. And I used this to demonstrate the hide show feature as well, and created a toggle that switched between these two scatter charts and a matrix visual. And you can see the toggle here, but you pointed out pretty quickly that this is limited use at first, mostly because the feature, like I said several times already, saves the entire state of the report, and that includes filters. So if you wanted to use this feature and not always go back to the default state of all of your filters and slicers that are set, you really couldn't use the toggle because it would always reset the user-defined filters. You can even see that demonstrated here in my example, because when I bookmarked the view that has the matrix, I was looking at a data incorporation, but whenever I bookmarked the scatter, I was looking at Contoso. So this month, what we're doing is we're letting you be able to pick the types of stuff saved in bookmarks. We divided it into 3 different categories: the data-related stuff, the visual-related stuff, and then the page switching that also comes with bookmarking. The data-related stuff includes things like the slicers, the filters, cross-highlighting, drill, sorting, all the stuff actually related to the data itself. And then the visual-related properties are things like hiding and showing stuff. Is it spotlighted or not? Is it full screen or not? And then, of course, the other thing that bookmarking does is it remembers what page you were looking at when you took the bookmark and takes you to that, while also giving you control over that. And between those 3 different things, you can now pick which groups of stuff is actually being applied through the bookmark. And so by default, you get all of it, but you can choose to turn it off, pieces of these off if you need to. So for example, for my toggle, all I wanted the toggle to do was really change between the visuals that are being displayed. I don't want to change anything about the filters or cross-highlighting or slicers, any of that. So I'm going to uncheck the data, and I'll do that for the bookmark as well that was showing the matrix. And now whenever I go and use my toggle, all it does is switch between the two visuals. It doesn't mess with any of my filters that I am applying. So hopefully you can see how this adds a lot of flexibility to your report and bookmarking, but we wanted to enable even more scenarios as well. So for example, taking this toggle example further, let's imagine you have a view where you wanted to again have those toggles, but also be able to compare the data between, say, the two different countries or regions that you're selling in. Even with this ability to pick, like, does it contain data or does it contain visual stuff, you still run into a problem because it still bookmarks the entire report page. So for example, if I start changing toggles here and then going back and forth, you'll notice that this toggle was still influencing this half of the page because the bookmark took the entire state of the report, not the half that I know I care about for this toggle. So we also, in addition to letting you pick what types of stuff to include in your bookmark, we also wanted you to be able to pick what visuals or other objects on your report page are included in the bookmark. What does the bookmark apply to on that report page? So we added this new option in the bookmarking pane that lets you toggle from applying the bookmark to everything on your reporting canvas, so all the visuals, or just the things that are currently being selected. And what we mean by selected visuals is the things that were selected on your report canvas when you created or updated the bookmark. And by selected, I mean literally selected on your reporting canvas. So for example, I would select all of the visuals and images, including the ones that are currently being hidden. So both of the images there, both of the scatters, and also the matrix. So everything that is on this half of the report. And whenever I created or updated this bookmark, while those things are selected, whenever I go back and then switch the toggle to selected visuals, it will make sure to only apply that bookmark to all of the stuff on this half of the page. So I had already pre-done all of the selection for each of these bookmarks, so I'm going to go ahead and switch the toggle for all 4 of them, the 2 for the left side and the 2 for the right. And now whenever I do the toggles, they will only influence the visuals on their side of the page. So between these 2 sets of features, the picking what's included in the bookmark and picking what the bookmark applies to, you have full flexibility over how the bookmarks work with your report, and you should be able to create some really interactive, really creative reports using these bookmarking features. And I'm very excited to see what you guys do with them now that they're out. Next up on our list is a fields property pane, and through this pane, the ability to add descriptions to fields. You can find this pane in the same view tab that you find the bookmarks and selection pane. And when you add it to your canvas and then also select a field to the field list, you'll see the pane shows both the name of whatever field you have selected and also gives you a box to type in a description. So for example, I could type in all the categories that we sell. And now, whenever you hover over the field in the field list, you see the description in the tooltip. And this is really useful whenever you have measures that you're creating and other people are going to be using the same data set to create other reports. They might not know what kind of calculation you're doing. There's many ways to, for example, compute revenue, and you might want to let them know how you are in fact doing that in the measure. So we anticipate lots of people adding these descriptions whenever there is, especially whenever there is a team where one person's typically doing all the data modeling and publishing this to the web, and then report creators are live connecting to it from the Power BI service. This way they can know exactly what calculations have been done to get the different measures that they have. we will also flow through, if you're like connecting to an external AS model, we will also flow through those descriptions that you have written up there, so you can also know whoever created the original model. You'll also know how they did all their different calculations and what all the different fields mean in that model. Next up is an improvement to our scatter charts visual that makes it even easier to create them. You can now create a scatter chart without having to add anything to the details bucket and just plotting all of the groupings of your X and Y axis. So let me show you that. So I'll go over to a different page and I will create a scatter chart. And normally, let's say I wanted to look at net satisfaction and my purchase again likelihood. By default, we just plot 1 point, which is the aggregate of those two fields. And to start seeing other things, you'll have to, of course, add something into the details bucket to start grouping by. But what about if instead you really wanted to see the distribution of your data for these two measures? And so you really just want to see all the pairings of the X and Y axis that exist in your data. So all the times those two numerical column values appear in your data set together. We now have, to enable that, we now have this do not summarize option whenever you're using numeric columns that will, instead of aggregating up, allow you to do exactly that and plot all of the pairings of those two columns in your data set. This is much more akin to how you would create a scatter chart in Excel, where typically you don't need the grouping. You just could select an X column and a Y column and create a scatter chart. So this makes it even easier, especially for people who are new to Power BI, to get going. This month we are extending our high density sampling algorithms to our map visual. So you may recall we have released a high density version of sampling for both scatter and line charts, all with the goal of making sure that the shape of your data and all the outliers will not be sampled out. For scatter chart, what we did was we made sure that whenever we drop a point, we first choose to drop the points that would have showed up behind another point anyways and therefore wouldn't have been visible. This allows us to retain the shape and also make sure that the outliers are present. Maps that are based on latitude and longitude are very similar to scatter charts, so what we've done is we've taken the same algorithm and extended that over to map visuals as well. So if you have a map that is all the locations are based on latitude and longitude, you will notice that you're now going to start seeing even more points. If you were hitting the data point limit, you're going to start seeing even more points because we are being really smart about making sure we show you the data that is significant to what you're trying to visualize. And just like our other sampling algorithms, you can always turn it off in the formatting pane under the general card. Next up is our typical section on the newest custom visuals, the first of which is the card browser. So the card browser visual is all around showing off flippable thumbnails for more natural navigation of media related stuff. So you can see here there's a bunch of cards all showing a bunch of information around baseball players. You get their picture, you get a description of them. They're cards, so they have a backside, similar to, for example, a baseball card. And when you flip them, you see all this information about their position, their team, which direction they bat, left or right-handed, things like that. And you can also click on the card to get all this extra information. You see the full picture, you get a description, the full description of them, all that information. And so it's a really fun and interactive way to interact with this document-like data. It's a beautiful visual as well, so if you do have data that fits into this format, I definitely recommend giving it a try. Next up is the table heatmap visual, which is all around showing the same kind of data that you would normally show in like a table or matrix, but in a heat map format really easily. So you can see here, the data showing up here is the exact same that's showing up in this matrix visual below. But instead of seeing each of the individual numbers, you're actually seeing the cell colored based off of its value. And what's nice about this visual is that it also shows you a legend that shows you each of the different steps and on the tooltip what the min and the max of each of those steps is. So you can always easily reference this legend. The visual also has some basic formatting capabilities, like you can turn the palette to a set of different color palettes that come from the visual, so you can have like a smooth gradient of a given color like purple, or you can have this yellow to red, and you have a whole bunch of palettes here that you can choose between. You can also control the number of buckets, so instead of 5, if you wanted 7, you could have that instead. So you're able to really make the visual look of the chart as much as you can tweak it as much as you want. The data image by CloudScope visual is all around making it really easy to display a dynamic image based off of whatever data you're currently filtered to. So you can see here that both of these two are not normal images, but they are in fact this data image. And all you have to do is pick the column that is a image URL, and you will put it inside the image. And this can be obviously dynamic based off of whatever you're filtered to, and so you're able to really easily display whatever image you want based off of whatever filters you are currently setting. And there are of course some nice formatting options. You can change a border, turn a border on and off, and you can also control, for example, you can see here this is a square and this is a circle, and you can actually control that as well. Does it have like a circle applied to it or not? Next up is the Power KPI Matrix visual, and this visual is all about being able to create scorecards really easily. So it's very similar to the typical matrix in that you have a bunch of categories that you're breaking down by and the values you're wanting to show. But additionally, you can do things like add spark lines and KPIs right into the matrix visual as well. So here are a few examples where you can see I have all these different values, these different categories that I'm breaking down by. And then here's the actual numbers that I'm looking at. You can see they're all formatted separately. Some are dollars, some are not, some are percent. And each one has a KPI associated with it and also a spark line. And you have tons of formatting capabilities in this chart type. You can see the formatting pane is quite full. You can do things like control the different KPI indicators. You can control things about the spark lines, like is there a spark line for all the different metrics or not, and is it on or off, and targets and stuff like that. You have so much flexibility here. You're going to spend quite a while just exploring the formatting pane and seeing what the capabilities of this visual are. The next custom visual is the text filter custom visual. And this visual is basically a select all search box. It's just, you put it on your page just like you would a normal slicer, and you can start searching for things within the category you give it, and it will automatically do a contains filter to filter down your data on the rest of your page down to anything that contains the letters that you typed in. So let me show you. So you can see here, this is the text filter visual, and right now it has in it the name field, which is also being shown in these two charts. And if I type, for example, Will, and hit enter or the search button, it will automatically filter down the rest of the report to all names that contain Will. So not just equals Will, but also Willard and William and Willie. And it automatically, I didn't have to individually check each of those names. It just automatically filtered the entire report down to anything that contains Will. So if you find that you oftentimes will need to select many things out of the text box that just contain certain letters, this custom visual is probably going to be really useful for you. The last two visuals, the chart accent line chart and the chart accent bar chart, are all around being able to create highly annotated formatted visuals. So there's two versions of it, one visual for the line chart and one for the bar chart, and you're able to do a lot of really detailed formatting on it. So you like formatting a specific data point, formatting a range of data points, being able to annotate the visual. It's all possible with these two new custom visuals. So here is a line chart example of the visual. So you can see right now in this line chart, you have the temperatures for 3 different cities, Seattle, Houston, and New York. And you can see there's this right-hand panel on the visual whenever you're editing it. And it gives you, for example, there's these different ranges that were added for these different steps, and you're able to control the min and the max and the formatting of it. And to create that, all you had to do was drag and drop within the axis. And then you can do things like change the color and label. You can even have things like I did here where I have text, and then the hashtags for the numbers. You can control the decimal precision. You have full control over each of these different sections and how they look. You can also control the data points really easily. So I can choose to add a label here. Instead of just being the number itself, it could be important. Or whatever I want to put. And I can add them all to all the data labels. You can control its positioning, the font size. You can see here all the annotations are listed out, and you can drag and drop them. It's similar to the query editor where you build on top of each of the individual annotations that you create. You can control the order of them and which ones show on top of the other. You can also add, other than just annotating individual data points or whole lines or ranges on the axis, you can also do things like add a text box or some shapes to annotate the data point. And so you have not only annotations on the data points and the values of the chart, but also all of these normal annotations that you might want to do to a given data point. And like I said, they have a bar chart version as well, so it's not limited just to line charts. You can see here in this example, they added the average line is added, and all of the bars that are above the average line are bright, while the rest of them are being dimmed out. So you can, again, add individual lines, select an individual data point, ranges on the axis, specific lines that are a specific point compared to this line, which was the average. And you just have so much control over this visual. They have a whole website dedicated to these two visuals and all the different capabilities it has. So you need to make sure, if you're interested in these visuals, you want to try them out, to also give the website a look so you can learn about all the different options that you have, including things like the syntax for giving an average line. This month, we also have an analytics related feature, which is one that I know has been really asked for in the community. It's really high up in user voice, which is the ability for whenever you're drilling down in a visual to not only drill down in that visual, but also filter everything else on that page related to it down as well to whatever you were drilling on. This is really important if you are really interested in this one data point. Say you picked a given category, computers. You care not only about computers in that one chart, but since you're interested in computers, you want to see all the data on the entire report page related to computers specifically, since that's what you care about. So now, with this new feature that we're adding, drill filtering other visuals, it will automatically be enabled for all new reports, And you can also control it within the Visual Tools Formatting tab. You'll see this new option. It's checked by default, but you can turn it off to go back to the old experience. But like I said, for all new charts, it would be on by default. And you can click on the little drill button. And now whenever I drill down into computers, you'll see the entire report page is filtered down to just the data about my computers. And I can continue to drill up and drill down to get even more specific about all the different data points. And so this feature should make it a lot easier for you whenever you're doing your analysis and you really want to drill into a given data point. You'll be able to learn a whole lot more, and it should just speed up your analysis steps. Moving on to our data connectivity section, we have lots of new connector updates. The first of which is we have a new preview connector, the Adobe Analytics connector. And this connector you can find under Get Data in the Online Services section. And here you'll see Adobe Analytics, and this connector, once you connect to it, will let you pull and import all of your data from Adobe Analytics. You can pick what data from there you want to pull in, and also provide any of the parameters that you need to for those fields. The next new connector we have is HDInsight Interactive Query Connector. This connector brings interactivity to complex data warehouse style queries on large data sets that are stored on commodity cloud storage. You can find this connector under Get Data, as always. And you'll see the option right here, HDInsight Interactive Query. And whenever you use this connector, you'll be able to pick between import or direct query as your option. Another new connector we have is a Data.World connector. This connector can be found under Online Services, and whenever you go through the flow to get data from here, you'll need to specify an owner, a dataset, and optionally a query to connect with. We also have two SAP BW Connector Improvements. The first of which is the ability to support connecting to an SAP BW message server. One of the top requests we got related to our SAP BW connector was support for being able to specify a message server instead of an application server. So to enable this, we now have both options here. So you'll be able to specify an SAP BW application server or the message server as an option whenever you're connecting. We also have new support for Windows authentication as well whenever you're connecting to SAP BW. Lastly, our RDB Netezza Connector is now generally available. It has been available for quite some time, and since I believe August has supported end-to-end connection with the Power BI service through the gateway, and we got a lot of great feedback on it as well. And due to all the good feedback we've gotten, and its full support in the desktop and the service with the gateway, and also the ability for import and direct query, we decided now is a great time to make it generally available for everyone to use. So if you have data that exists in any of these different data sources, make sure to try either the new connector or the improvements for the connector that we released this month. So that's it for this month. We have tons of new features, so let us know what you think and what you'd like to see added next.